Welcome back to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Shimmons. Thanks for coming back to our Global Ultra Trail Show. In this episode, I sit down with Ethan Peters after he just won the UTMB event in Argentina. Ethan is a norda athlete from Canada and really came on my radar whenever he stormed to an amazing victory at the UTMB race in Snowdonia in May of this year. Such an amazing performance on a really difficult course. So I've sat down with Ethan to hear all about his history in athletics, in sport, in running, why he got into the sport, and also to talk about some of the cool races that he's done. So it's a good conversation. Stick around. Before we get there, got to thank the sponsors, Tantrums, Trail Talk 15 for 15% off at checkout. It's a Trail Talk exclusive and it's the most discount you will find anywhere online. Also, XMiles, our global nutrition partner, shipping worldwide with FedEx. Link in the description for both of those discounts. And GOREWEAR as well. I Run Over Mountains 30 is a 30% discount code. Again, a global discount code. So use that and get yourself some half-tide socks, rain kit, bike stuff, all the good stuff. But on to the show. Ethan Peters, welcome to Trail Talk. Excited to get you on and have a chat with you, as we were saying before we started recording. Been looking to have you on the podcast for months at this point, but we'll maybe start off with congratulating you on your win last weekend at the UTMB Bariloche, I think. Yeah. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
In Argentina. The 100-mile category in the Argentina race was 132k and 6,500 meters of gain. So how are you feeling? How's the recovery?
It's been good. Yeah. I had such a great day out there, and of course winning also helps, I find, with the recovery. But yeah, it was really just the travel that was so hard on the body, and I just got home last night after 40 hours of flights and airport time and taxis and driving home. And yeah, so it's been, my immune system was rough until last night when I got a full night's sleep, and I feel much better today.
How does it take 40 hours to, I know it actually is a long way, but it's like almost straight, it looks like how many stopovers is it on the way back to Canada?
Yeah. Well, I'm 3 hours from the airport, so that adds a lot of time, but I did a really efficient travel, and it was like a stop in Toronto, and then a stop in Brazil, and then a stop in Buenos Aires, and then a domestic flight from Buenos Aires to Bariloche. Yeah, so.
Right.
Yeah. And one of those flights is like 10 hours long, so that's the main, that eats up a lot of time.
Yeah, and it looked like, we'll get into the race in a little bit, but it looked like there was good vibes, like real kind of fun party atmosphere around that race. What was it like? What was the hospitality like?
It was crazy. So Bariloche is a city, and I wasn't expecting this, but it's like a city of 100,000 people, and the Argentinians are quite the party people. They're very passionate and happy and emotional, and yeah, pretty much immediately was, welcomed with that kind of energy. And yeah, throughout the race too, just like crazy energy. Similar to like that you'd receive from like the Europeans. Like you never kind of see that in North America, or not as common in North American racing, but like, yeah, it's just like this passion towards, you, and it's very like genuine. It's not, here's like a big runner coming through. It's kind of, it's very genuine, and I don't really know what the right word is, but it's so sweet and warming. Yeah, I don't speak any Spanish, not a word. So it was challenging for me to get over that, but people were nice, and there's Google Translate, and yeah, so it was good.
Cool. I think since you're new to Trail Talk, it would be helpful for the audience just like to hear a little bit about you, like where, what age are you, where are you located, and then we'll get into I want to learn about, as I said to you, like I just want to learn who Ethan is and your background in sports and things. So like, where are you connecting from, and what age are you and stuff?
Yeah, so I'm 27. and I live in Fernie, British Columbia, which is a small mountain town kind of in the Rockies, close to Calgary and like south of Banff. So, and it's known for skiing and mountain biking. And I started ultra running almost 10 years ago. I did my first ultra race was a 100-miler in Ontario, which is where I'm originally from. And yeah, I immediately after that 100-miler, which took 26 hours and was very grueling and didn't know anything, ran with a 500 ml hand bottle and no food. It was a mess, but I finished, and I remember sitting afterwards and just thinking like, I think I'm going to enjoy this sport. Like that was fun and I want to go back pretty much, an hour after I finished the race. So since then I've, slowly grown with the sport and done bigger races here in Canada, and had one race where I didn't actually I came like 25th, but that was enough. I remember during the race thinking like, oh, it's actually fun to not just complete these, but actually to race them and think of it more as like a competition. But I always even doing that, I really always want to keep, and we'll get into this because this was a big discovery for me this year, but was to keep that love for the sport, for the challenge, not so much for the glory of competition, but also just the challenge and traveling beautiful places. So yeah, in a big, grand scheme of things, I just am a guy who likes to suffer for a long time, and I enjoy the challenge, and ultra running is a very, great place to do that, and to travel long distances with that. It's so important to me in my life, and yeah. So that's kind of
Yeah, well, you're preaching to the converted here.
quick
Me
note.
and the audience, that's you're ticking the boxes of what we all love.
Yeah.
Did you play sports as a kid?
Yeah, so I grew up playing rugby, actually. I played rugby in the summers and alpine skied in the winters, and both of those things just knocked my brain up way too much. So then after kind of in high school, the end of high school, I was told not to play any more rugby or ski by some lovely doctors, and started just running and not doing any kind of particular sport until university, where I did one season of varsity rowing, which was super intense at a great university. And I actually ended up really enjoying the training side of things and not so much the competition and the sport. I loved rowing and it's an unbelievable sport, but really it was the training, which was a lot of running. And then slowly but surely that running developed into ultra running and trails. And
so a lot of people come from, there's people come from different backgrounds, and I kind of think it's always interesting how people get into the trail aspect or into the mountain aspect. You mentioned earlier that you're into skiing and that type of thing. So how did you make the transition from rowing and training and enjoying training to, hey, I'm gonna run over mountains?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have never actually really thought about it, but thinking back to the time I signed up for my first trail race, that 100-mile race. So of course, yeah, that's a trail race. And the months leading up to that, I was just, running a lot. And I had this great family friend who had done a lot of Ironman races, and we were just over for dinner, and she was like, I was talking about my run there. She was like, wait, how far did you go today? And I was like, 20K. She was like, you ran 20K? And I was like, yeah. She's like, how much did you run yesterday? And I was like, I think 18 or 20. And I was like, and she kept on asking and the day before. And I was like, I just kept on, I just loved running and training. And it was I lived in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto, which is a big city. And I, always enjoyed the challenge of vertical, doing hill repeats. And, but it wasn't until I started signing up for a race when I was like, oh, well, I can't do a marathon because I ran 20K yesterday, and that's just 2 times that amount. So, and then I was like, well, 50K is pretty close to that. And my brain immediately was like, well, what if I'm going to do something big, I should just do something huge and just see, if I don't finish, I don't finish. And then that's what brought me to the trails. I've always kind of loved like but I've mountain biked my whole life and loved the, trails and the forests and mountains and everything. But it wasn't really until that, like when I did the 100-miler, that was like the main. I think I'd run, maybe a 10K in trails before then, but nothing big before that 100-miler, which was, yeah, life-changing.
So hold up a minute. Your first trail race you entered was a 100-miler?
Yeah, yeah. My first running race ever was 100 miles.
That is very unique. I've never heard anyone say that before. How the hell did you do that? Like, people find out about trail and ultra and, oh, the mate did a race or someone in the
Yeah,
run club is running
yeah,
ultras. But there's always like the progression through, the distances, because like with ultra, it's, I think I can do it, let's try.
yeah,
And then once you've ticked that 50K or for 50 mile off, it's 100K and
yeah,
it's 100 mile, and then, so forth. You
yeah.
just went straight to, both feet in. Let's do a miler.
Yeah, it was the naivety of a young 18-year-old who
Isn't
was
that
just like,
wonderful?
yeah, like, and I've always been like that, like since, I can ever remember, just like seeing and like trying to evaluate what my limits are and saying like, okay, well, I think I could do it. If I break it up into small enough pieces and just like, think of it in a more comprehensible way, then I think I can actually accomplish this. And I wasn't like completely naive, and like I didn't just go in without training or anything. Everything that I did was pretty much wrong, but I did try. So yeah.
I love that. And did you have mentors or people that inspired you in those early years? Like, who were you going to ask questions of, what shoes do you wear for this? Or, what's this backpack? Like, who were you leaning on for advice, or were you just like winging it?
I just totally winged it. I brought like my mom and dad came. I think my mom did some Googling and, saw like the Scott Jurek article with like the rice balls and like things that worked for him. And so I think she like made some of that stuff. I was like, oh, I'll just pack like 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and eat one each marathon. And then, of course, that totally blows up. And I ended up pretty much not eating anything like the whole race, which was just bananas. But yeah, and then like it just, yeah, like I never really was like, oh yeah, like like I didn't know who, Courtney DeWalter was or Jim Walmsley was or Killian. I didn't know anything. I wasn't on Instagram at the time, and I just like, yeah, I had all I knew was Rich Roll, actually. That's the only person that and I read his book in university and enjoyed, all the things he had to say about the sport and about all the, great things he's done. But yeah, I genuinely, went into it. I ran it without a shirt on. I didn't have a vest. Like I said, it didn't have nutrition. I had like one, like, $20 or $15 hard handheld bottle, which that's all I drank out of. And then it wasn't until my next race where a week before my mom was like, so it looks like people are running with these vests now. Like, I think you should. And she bought me a vest for like my birthday. And I was like, this is really efficient and awesome. Like, thank you so much. But again, just like totally oblivious. And yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit bonkers, but also very fun as well. I mean, you're just going into it like with an open mind, ready
Mm-hmm.
for the experience, ready to, let's just go and see what it's like. If I don't finish, I don't finish, but I'm gonna give it a go. And it's like a
Mm-hmm.
great attitude to go into these things. There's like no pressure and it's fun. One of the things that I've noticed, certainly how you come across online, and it's not from stuff that you're making, it's just like when people have filmed you at races and stuff, it always looks like you're having great crack. Like, it always seems like you're smiling and happy and just loving it.
Yeah. And I approach the sport to love it. I do want to go in a race and like when we get into Bariloche, the main goal was to go and enjoy myself and that, you know, And I've always, like, I've had great coaches throughout my life, and pretty much every single one of them has been like, if you smile, like your body, your brain shoots different chemicals. And even if you're smiling and you are having the worst time of your life, you are getting some of that good stuff. And like, yeah, the fake it till you make it. But a lot of the time I am just enjoying myself, and I'm not faking it. Like, it is just, that's at the end of the day, I go and I run because I love it. And yeah, like a smile on my face is how that emanates through me. And it probably pisses some people off, especially some like competitive guys. But yeah, like I just want to have a good time, and yeah, can't blame me for it.
And so what year was that first race, that 100?
I think it was 2019. I'd have to look. I think I was 18 or 19 years old. So about 10 years ago. Yeah. Halliburton
Okay.
100 miler. Yeah.
And coming out from that experience, like what did you learn about yourself, even in the training for it and in the training afterwards? What were the takeaways? Like, I'm good at this, I'm bad at this, I need to work on this. What was in your mind after that experience?
After the first race?
Yeah.
Yeah, after the first race, it was a long time ago, but I remember not really feeling like the point of me doing it was like self-discovery almost. It was kind of like, first of all, can I do it? And second of all, what is it going to feel like, to travel that distance and to push through all the, hallucinations and stomach issues and low energy and sleep deprivation, like all of those things. And it was just accomplishment. It wasn't, I wasn't like, I was slow here, or I couldn't do this, or I couldn't do that. But like, yeah, like it was a horrible race. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. I remember like being so cold, being so hot, just like not eating too much, eating the wrong things, not drinking too much. Like everything was bad. So you could throw the dart anywhere and it would be a bullseye. Like everything needed to be improved on. And by the second race, I like was pretty dialed. And, before the first race, I remember the longest run I had ever done was like 32 kilometers, I think, before 100 miles. So a lot of that was just like, oh wow, like this is the longest I've run. I didn't have a running watch. I didn't have anything. It was all just feel, and which is, yeah, like, again, I look back at that and try and, learn from that kind of love for it as well, being like so competitive now and so like performance driven. And then, yeah, the second race, it was like, I knew about eating, like eating consistently and not overeating at certain points, and drinking, but I was still learning a lot. And it was the second race was like really mountainous. It was like my first experience. I remember like being like, wow, this climb is 2 kilometers long. Like that was like big, like that was like crazy for me to think about in my head. And so, yeah, I was like, and then I finished that one, and that was just like opened the door of ultra running. Like I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this now. Like I really enjoy this. Yeah.
Along this journey of training and racing, were you starting to identify strengths?
Yeah, like the early races, like after that second race, then I started training more aggressively, and I did like a whole summer in like the west coast or the Rocky Mountains of Canada. And I just, yeah, I spent a lot of time just like enjoying getting to summits and enjoying the climbing, and noticing that like the climbing and descending were becoming my strengths, just because they were so playful, and like the climbs were so challenging, and I enjoyed that. And then the descents were, also like fast and playful. And because I enjoyed them, then they became, my skills, because I did so much of them. And that's what, led me to become, now at this point, I'm a very good climber and a very good descender. And my weaknesses, I would say, are sometimes on the flats, because that is where I don't train very much and I don't enjoy them. So, that said, we'll get into it in Bariloche, but I think I did a pretty good job.
So if we like fast forward a little bit, as I said, you come onto my radar after like an amazing performance at UTS this
Mhm.
year when you won the 100-mile category race. And a lot of people say that the UTS 100-miler is definitely right up there, if not like probably harder than the finale itself, just because of the
Mhm.
type of course. And it's kind of rough. Some of it's not really trail. It's more like, there's flags. It's a Welsh British kind of mountain experience. But you went into that race and you nailed it. Like
Mhm.
just like 23:59 on the time, won the race. What made you go to Snowdonia? Had you identified that as somewhere that would suit you, or why Snowdonia?
You pretty much hit it. Like it is one of the hardest 100-milers, like a hard mountain 100-miler, and like that, as I've developed and my career has developed, like I'm looking for challenging mountains to run across. And so that was, maybe there were three reasons, but that was the primary one. The second one was the route. It's this beautiful, huge 100-mile loop, which you never get. And even like looking more closely at the route, you're not running like a UTMB style race. They look through the mountains and they try and find the most efficient way to get through them. Snowdonia, which is passes and valleys, which is great, and there's nothing wrong with it. But Snowdonia, on the other hand, is like ridges and summits. Like I think I counted you go over 29 summits throughout the whole race. Like I was just like my eyes were just like, whoa, like that is just awesome. And that's what I look for. And then the third thing, I've never been to the UK, as a Canadian, we're kind of really tightly married with the United Kingdom. And I thought, yeah, it would be really cool. Like that's another thing I love about ultra running is it's worldwide and you can experience new cultures and yeah, to go to Wales and have, you know, that mountain experience and success was just like awesome. It was very challenging to train for in the spring here, but yeah, it was a spectacular experience and I loved it. Yeah.
And what's becoming almost customary now is UTS gets super hot weather, which is very rare. But if there is a
Yeah.
time in the UK and even in Ireland when you can get like freak hot weather, it might
Hmm.
be like a couple of weeks in May or June, and then it never returns again until the next year.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we can get like that early kind of summer or something. What was it like racing in these kind of pristine conditions, or maybe it was like too hot to race?
Yeah, it was certainly a little too hot. The cool thing about UTS and running it in 24 hours is it starts at 1 p.m. There's 8 hours before sunset, and then there was 8 hours of night and 8 hours after sunrise. So I was kind of like starting in the heat and it cooled off as like the day progressed. And then the night was cool. Sometimes in 100-milers, my body just like it feels like it absorbs all the heat and it never kind of releases throughout the night. But it was nice and cool in the night, and then during the day it was slowly got hot until the finish line. But I just spent the whole day kind of soaked. Like whenever it was daylight, I pretty much tried to stay wet, and I usually run really well in the heat, and that's a strength for me. So I just kind of followed my regiment and try not to like freak out too much when the brain felt like it was like slowly cooking as it does in the hot races. And then yeah, I think like that kind of focus really helped me. And when a lot of the guys behind me were struggling and slowing down, I just kind of redialed into that and really tried to focus on yeah, electrolytes and hydration and all the great things that you need to do.
Did you go into that race thinking I could win this?
No, actually, I didn't. I was pretty intimidated by the competition, and yeah, especially like it starts with a long climb up to Snowdon, the main peak there in the Snowdonia National Park, and I was like, running with all these guys, and like sponsored athletes, and it was intimidating. But as we went up and we were just like chatting and having a good time, and then I got to run with Florian for like the majority of the race, and that was just like an unbelievable treat. And once we started kind of working with each other and just like enjoying the experience, like we weren't focusing on the race. We were focusing on just like, traveling through the mountains and doing it fast. And yeah, that was when I was like, oh, I think, this could happen. And then I've ran with Tom a couple times and but it wasn't until like Tom caught us at halfway, Tom Jolly, and then, Tom and I shared a long climb, and at the top of that climb, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to go for it. And that's when I like dropped the hammer and 80K into a 100-miler. That's when the race starts. So that's when I dropped the hammer and was like, okay, this could be my day and I'm here. Let's show the world what I can do. But I didn't start the race. I wasn't like, I'm thirsty or frothing for this gold medal or this win. And yeah, if there's anything I've learned from this entire season, this really successful season, it's just like, taking that step back and really just never focusing on going for the win, more focusing on just, the enjoyment of it and the challenge, for me at least.
Yeah. It was a great race to follow, and it's a race that athletes come away from just kind of respectful of its difficulty, and I can only just imagine how much harder that race would be if it was bad weather. And some year UTS is going to get bad weather.
Yeah.
It could just be, I don't know how many hours slower if it was wet rock. And then also thinking about those grassy descents then become slippy descents as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a grueling course, but if there's anything I'm starting to learn from ultra running, it's actually not becoming as dependent on the weather. Especially looking at a race like UTMB this year, that was probably the worst weather that UTMB could have ever gotten. And yes, people still ran great races with great times. Like Tom Evans was under, they did cut the pyramid section out, but Tom Evans was under like the course record. So it was, it's interesting that like, yes, I totally agree with the perspective, but also, runners are getting faster, and there's always going to be a challenge. And sometimes that challenge during the race isn't the weather so much, but it's actually, if it's good weather, like at Snowdonia, it could be the heat, because it's good weather, it's hot. And even if it's like that perfect overcast, 15 degrees, the dream race, what you want, then maybe you go out too hard because it's the dream conditions, and that becomes the challenge. Like there's always going to be something. And sometimes if the challenge is like weather, like something you can see and like be aware of, then maybe it's a bit easier. Like at the end of the day, my perspective on ultra running is like, especially at the top of the sport, everyone is like fit. Everyone is super fit. But like each person is bringing mental strengths to the sport and being able to apply those differently. And that is like where you get these like strengths and weaknesses. Of course, you get them through fitness and muscular and build and all that too. But yeah, it's fascinating to think of the sport like that, and instead of like being like, oh, this is a bad weather year, or this is going to be a shit show, being like, well, I'll just bring the clothes and run a bit slower on the descents, and it'll be cooler on the flat so I can run harder. And it all kind of shifts around. It's challenging and easy. It makes the sport easier and more challenging to like think of it like that. But yeah, it's interesting that like people are running so fast no matter the conditions.
Coming out of Snowdonia, you had a break then before the next race, which was the Canadian Death Race, or Death Race, yeah, isn't that right? Yeah.
Yeah, Canadian Death Race, yeah.
Which you won. Was it this year that there was a film as well about that race, right? Was that this year?
Yeah, so that the Death Race it's like a 25-year-old ultra marathon here. This was the 25th anniversary this year, and it's fascinating, a fascinating race that I ran 2 years ago as well. And when I ran it 2 years ago, I was like, oh man, there's like this course record that an American has, which I was kind of like, that's kind of not right.
Yeah.
And two, it's old. Like no one's taken this course record in so long. So at that point, I kind of had the idea to go back and try and take the course record. Ricky Gates is the runner who had it, who's a very, very strong American runner. And yeah, it's a race that's kind of fluctuated in popularity, but also is kind of well known. A lot of, American runners know it. And so it would have been like a really cool goal. And at the beginning of the season, I was like, okay, this is going to be my main goal, to try and take this course record. And then, yeah, it was an awesome day of horrible weather, but yeah, it's a really cool race. It's a lot of runnable terrain, but you're also, I think it's around 5,100 meters of gain over like 120K. So it is quite a lot of elevation. And yeah, a lot of running, and the organization saw that I was coming and they've, seen me over the years, get better and faster. I did win it back in 2023 or 2022 when I ran it before. And then, yeah, they were like, he's coming, like maybe we should make a documentary about his attempt. And yeah, so they put this film together, and yeah, it turned out really well. And it was another just like spectacularly fun day on the trails and in the mountains. So challenging to run that fast, like, but it also, I went into it thinking like, if I can do this, if I can take this record, then maybe, races that I'm not really like put them off, but I definitely am not too, motivated to run races like Western States that are like super running and super fast, and not so much like, going over mountains, summits and ridges. So yeah, it was a cool, experience to have, to like not just run that fast, but also, be comfortable and push my limits a bit more in that kind of a race, and plant the seed for a race like Western States in the future.
It's a race that I think globally a lot of people know because it's got a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
It's like a unique name, like, the Canadian Death Race. There's other
Yeah.
races like, like Hellbender, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter
I know
what
what you
these
mean.
courses are like. It's just like a name that stands out. So I think it's
Yeah.
cool in that respect, and I'd heard of it a long time ago, but I
Mhm.
knew nothing about it. And then I saw whenever you ran it this year,
Yeah.
there's like river crossings and things. You had to get in a boat at one point, isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know, I should know the myth that it's all based off of, but it's based off of this like Greek mythology where you needed a coin to cross this river. It was either the river in or out of hell, and you gave the coin. And so it's like about, and there's a grim reaper who sits at the river shore, and you have to give the coin. And the coin you get at the top point of the race when you go over this really cool alpine ridge. And it's actually an out and back. And to make sure that people run the out and back, they put coins at the very end of like in a bucket. So you have to pick up your coin, and then you run like K to the river, and you hand your coin over to someone dressed as the Grim Reaper, and you get in this speedboat, and they whip you across this crazy river, and then it's a grueling 7 kilometers or so up to the finish line after that. So yeah, it's got character, that race. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check out that video. It's in the on my radar, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. They did a good job. Yeah.
You also ran TDS this year.
Yes.
I'd love to know why you picked TDS. Would UTS not have qualified you for like the full loop
UTS. Yeah. It qualified me for next year.
for next
It's
year, right?
not, yeah, it's not the
Well, you've no
same.
shortage of qualifiers for next year now.
No, I'm good. I'm there. Yeah. So TDS was a tricky one, and I probably shouldn't have done it, but I didn't have a qualifier. I started this season of running, like 2025, saying I'm not going to Chamonix this year, because I
Why
went.
not? It's so much fun.
It's so much fun. I went last year. I ran UTMB last year. I ran UTMB the year before. And it's just a lot. Like, when you start, even now, I'm like already thinking about UTMB next year. Like even when I'm
Yeah,
training for, it's slowly, and this is really important that I need to focus on for the whole next season to come is just, taking a breath and not getting overly crazy about it even before it starts. Running it, I'm going to be crazy about it, but yeah. And so, yeah, so I decided not to go to Chamonix. So I was thinking, oh, I could run a race last fall and qualify for UTMB for 2025, but I didn't want to do it. And I needed to respect that, for myself. And then I finished, I think it was after Death Race or Snowdonia. I finished a race and I was just running, and after a race and you do really well and you're just like in that, beautiful land of glory, and everything, music sounds better, food tastes better, everything's just lovely. And I was like, I think I should go run TDS. And I was like thinking, oh, it must have been after Snowdonia because it was so tight to Death Race. It was only barely 3 weeks after Death
yeah,
Race. And Death Race was my goal of the season, and it required a lot. The training was a lot. The racing was a lot on the body, and I accomplished it, and that was really good. And then I had signed up for TDS, and it wasn't my day, and I learned so much about myself and about how I need to approach racing after that day. But I went into it with these expectations to win the race. I was like, well, I've got the mountain legs, I've got the experience and the speed and the plan and the stomach to be able to do this. And I really think that was my mistake. I finished the race, and I came 23rd, and it wasn't, it wasn't the worst, but yeah, I had, really bad diarrhea for hours, and I fell asleep on the side of the trail, threw up for another 30 minutes later in the race. But it was cool. Like it was one of those kind of races from the start of my ultra running experience where it became not about, the result and not about, competition or the awards, the prize or anything. It was just about, the challenge and getting through it. And yeah, I was so happy to be done that race. Everything went poorly, which is funny because Death Race and Snowdonia, like they were both really hard races, but everything went well pretty much, So it was kind of like this dichotomy of, okay, now everything needs to just go to the shit. So
yeah.
yeah.
What did like we hear so often that people don't have enjoyable days, good days, and they thought,
Hmm.
I'll just bin it, save the legs.
Yeah.
So I love that you gutted it out. I mean, gutting it out for 23rd place. I mean, per you, if I was gutting that out, I might be 123rd. But what did you learn from like such a hard day out there? Like, sounds like you had real challenges.
Yeah, so yeah, just to break the race down, like I started fast. I started at a pace that I knew I could hold, and it was the winning pace. Like I was up at the front with one other guy, and that other guy was the guy who won the race. So I knew what I was doing in that sense, but pretty soon after, my either something I ate before the race or something, just like my body was not okay with the nutrition. And yeah, I just had really a tough time from the lower end for probably 2 hours. And then I got up and, got to like that main, I think it's like 50K or 30K in. I can't remember, but one of the main aid stations, I think it's 50. And I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, you know what? You're still kind of close to your paces, and it's a long race. You shouldn't write this off. And I was actually like descending with a La Sportiva athlete, or I can't remember their name, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but they looked at me and they were like, oh, like, am I going to see you on the bus? And I was like, no. And he was like, yeah, I think I'm done. I was like, man, you're running down this descent so fast. And there is like kind of what you're getting at. There is this like cohort of elite athletes and I can't blame them because, you know, how the index system works and everything, like it is stressful, and sometimes it is better to take that, DNF instead of getting a big hit to your UTMB index or becoming like 123rd or 23rd. And I think that I hope to never be in that cohort because of my like inherent enjoyment of the sport. But yeah, while I was descending with this guy, I got to the main aid station, 50K in, restocked, was like, okay, we can do this. And then like energy levels, like all time low, and like fell asleep on the grass for like a good 30 minutes. Got to the next aid station, called my girlfriend, was like, I'm done. This is not my day. This is my energy's in the dumper, and I just can't do this. And yeah, like my girlfriend, she's an amazing person, and she was, cut the bullshit and was like, well, why don't you just like look around and enjoy yourself? Like, you're here, you love the mountains. And I think it was like she kind of heard something I said, like all this complaining, all this negativity, and in all that, speech, I said like, oh, but it is kind of nice out right now. And of course, it was like a bluebird day. I was up in the fort like there's an aid station that's like at this old fort, and the sun had just risen, and it was like alpenglow. And yeah, she heard me say that one little thing, that one bit of positivity, and that whole spiel of negativity, and just like, yeah, just totally blew that up. And it's why the crews are so important at these races. And yeah, at that point I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm just going to walk. I'll just walk to the next aid station. This next section, have you ran TDS? Yeah, that next section is the most beautiful of the whole race. So I was just like, I gotta just see it and enjoy the mountains. And pretty much immediately after, my head went from like, instead of it being like, oh, I gotta win this race because I have to win, to being, let's just enjoy. Like, the legs were fresh, the stomach was resolved, everything was just great. And I looked at my watch and I was like, well, we're 60K or 65K into this race. I've got 90 or 85 more. That's a long way. Like, I can run a fast race and maybe I could get into the top 10. Like, 50 people had passed, or more had asked me, top 3 women had asked me. It was just like, yeah, I was really far back there. But that kind of, coming back to like the challenge oriented running was exciting for me, and, gave some, push in my step, and my energy levels weren't in the dumper anymore. And yeah, it was really fascinating. And then, fast forward, I ran that middle third of the race faster than anyone that day, faster than the winner. And I caught up to like, I was like in 14th place and had like the last big climb of the race in front of me. And I could see like, 13th, 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, all in front of me on the climb. And I had caught them. I was running faster than them. I was stronger. And in my head, I was like, wow, you did this. And then like 1 minute, comically, like 1 minute later, I was like explosive vomiting into the grass, overheating, like trying to find the tiniest bit of shade I could find. And yeah, and then I, got seen by the medics, and they kind of treated me, but were like, if we poke needles in you right now, you're going to be pulled from the race. And we can't even, it was like on that one of the coals that are like super high, and they were like, you're going to have to walk down from this at some point. We're not flying you out. So I was like, well, I might just like, well, so I'll start walking. And like, it was sad because I'd like built up all of this, I was pushing through so much pain, and like, because of, I think it was some dehydration, and I was like covered in so much salt, and then I'd sat for too long, like with the medics, and all the adrenaline kind of was gone. And so I had to like re-break the body in to try and get down this, yeah, it was a really hard day. Having that like moment of like, 13th, 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, that in itself was glorious and enough for me. So that's what I like took from the race and was proud of. But yeah, it did leave me wanting something more for the season. And that's why I ended up signing up for, one of the reasons I signed up for Bariloche was just to
That's
fill
actually
the
like a really cool experience that you did have at TDS, because
Mhm.
you can't. That's not something you can get from training. That
No.
is the epitome of experience. Like,
Yeah.
you had the massive low, the comeback, and then the ass
An
kicker at the
explosion.
end,
Yeah.
and then you still got to the finish. Like, what you got from that 24 hours out there, like, you can't buy that.
No, no. And yeah, you like you said, you can't find it training, and that's like yeah, it was a hard day and it was a bad result on my, index and my resume, but at the end of the day, I came out of that race with so many lessons. And like exactly what you're saying, that were, you cannot put worth to. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Alternatively, if earlier on at 50K you had pulled the plug and went home, the only
Mhm.
thing you would have learned is, I can quit. I can
That
quit and
is,
make this end.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which
That's really
I've,
cool.
yeah, knock on wood, I'm sure something will happen someday and I'll need to pull out a
There's a
race,
time
but
for it.
yeah, at this point I haven't, and I'd like to keep it that way. And um yeah, if it means pushing through all that pain, then that so be it. That's the sport. It was beautiful. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you already punched your ticket and you decided
Mhm.
to go and punch it again. You just this past weekend you went to Argentina and ran
Yeah.
the UTMB Bariloche race. I think, how many is that, a brand new UTMB event?
I am confused how to answer that question. I think it is. Like, at least it was never called Bariloche. I think it might have been called Patagonia by UTMB before, or
Right.
something else.
Okay.
There's Ushuaia, which is also a UTMB race in like the south tip of Argentina. But yeah, it was pretty much a brand new race. It was a brand new course, and yeah, in Argentina, in South America, which I'd never been to. So
Yeah.
after finishing TDS, I was really indifferent about doing another race. Doing 4 long races, like at a competitive level in a year, is quite a lot. And I was feeling it. Like, even doing TDS, I was like, whoa, this like inherent fatigue that you kind of get. Like, it's really hard to explain, but it's kind of like you always want to fall asleep. But yeah, like I just, and the training was getting exhausting. And I took a huge break though after TDS. I, did a big bike trip break. I did a huge bike trip and then I did a huge canoe trip, but no running, just like still using my body and still happy. And then yeah, went into this great training block here in Fernie at home and just like enjoyed doing some exploration. And then, yeah, just it's challenging, the falls, like the fall season can be really challenging here. Sometimes we get really early snow, or we get really heavy rain and like cold, awful temperatures. So, but it turns out it was a great, great fall to run in Fernie, and I got some really good training in and really looked at running super steep repeats, which, that's what I did before Snowdonia as well, just like really hammering the quads. And I knew that, the terrain in Argentina was going to be rugged and going to be steep, kind of like the terrain in Snowdonia, actually, which is crazy. But like I knew they wouldn't be those like creamy Europe, like French and Swiss European trails that are just like amazing to run, but it would be more playful, super technical descending, and that's exactly what it was. Um, and yeah, now I'm still kind of in this, 2 days before the race, I called my girlfriend and was just like, I don't know if I should be here. Like, I do feel a bit of that indifference. And she was like, well, you're there and you're excited and you just should just stick with that and be happy about it. So yeah, at the end of the day, I am happy I did it. I did win and that's great too, but I'm really pleased that I did it and the experience I had.
Your girlfriend sounds like a great person to call at that aid station or at that moment
Yeah.
of doubt. You're like, lift the phone here. Oh yeah, that's what I needed to hear.
She's
You've got to
spectacular.
keep her there for sure.
Yeah, truly.
After TDS, like the bike trip, the canoeing trip, how
Yeah.
long was that? How long did that last? How long were you totally taking a break
Whole
from like
September.
running?
Yeah. All of September I didn't run. Yeah.
And
Like I
then you
did like
had
a
like
K
6 week
here and there.
block or something before you were starting to think about taper or?
Yeah. I think, 6 or 7 weeks to the race day.
Cool. I think it's so important to have like that mental break, and you were still moving, you were still outdoors, you were still doing things, but you hadn't, like, touching on what you said earlier about getting UTMB next year out of your head.
Yeah.
It really does weigh on you if you're just thinking about that over and over and
Yeah.
over again over time. So I think that break would have been really cool. And the canoeing
Yeah.
trip sounds
We're our worst nightmares. Yeah. Or our worst enemies. Like, especially at the top level of the sport, it's so easy to just like get overexcited or get like Strava oriented where you're like, oh, I need the chart. I need it to be perfect.
it's the
I
worst.
need it really. Oh my God, it really is. So yeah, I just kind of like let go of all that. And I did that after Snowdonia too. Like I went on a nice like mountaineering trip and I went on a climbing trip and just like doing things, that aren't so. And then once I got back to the training, I was like hyper focused and I was like
Yeah.
super focused and, you know, on not just the training stuff, but also the other stuff that you need while training, like sleeping and eating well and keeping your stress levels like in a good place and all that super important stuff instead of like just being exhausted and maybe letting it go on the sleep or letting it go on the nutrition and or letting go on the training and or overdoing it because you're so stressed. And so yeah, it's really something that I'm learning from and have made the mistake in the past where you get like so excited about the 200K weeks and the big training on the Strava or your Vert or whatever. But yeah, it's so important to take a step back and just like have a good time as well, like enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. There's a time for getting after it, but getting after it for too long, you're burning matches essentially. You can't.
Hmm.
The box isn't infinite.
No.
So let's
No.
talk a little bit about Bariloche. What made you pick Argentina? Like, was there a UTMB invite because of your index, or like what was the reason
There,
behind picking that one?
yeah, it's like I would say like two main, maybe three main reasons. I'd never been to South America, first of all, which was really important to me.
Top of the list.
Not so much, I would put them all equal here. But yeah, I'd never been to South America. I was excited about that. And yeah, the mountains, like I'm always looking for, a new mountain experience. In the sense of like Patagonia, I'd never seen it. I'd never experienced those kind of mountains. Funnily enough, they're very similar to the Rockies, specifically the Bariloche area. I wouldn't say all Patagonia is. But yeah, like that was really important to me. And then lastly, after TDS, I just was, I was kind of looking for something to be proud of, somewhere to go and race a good race. I didn't want to do 100 miles, so 130K was kind of like perfect, and just be proud of an effort and not so much go and win. I didn't know who was going and I didn't know even the course. They didn't really release. They released a bit of stats, but I couldn't really figure out too much about the course or anything. So yeah, those are like the main reasons I went there.
And what would you say about the course itself? Like, and if you look at the numbers, like numbers, it's like it's like
Yeah.
less than a one-dimensional picture of what it is. Like it says nothing. What was the technicality like? What was the altitude like? You know, what
Yeah.
was
So it was, I think the start, like the base altitude is around 700 to 900 meters. Like, so nothing crazy. And then it got up to 23 or 2400. Um, and yeah, the course, you know, I think they did a great job, but there is definitely a better route there. There, the course kind of, you do like this big kind of out and back loop, but there was a lot of repeats of certain trails, and that, you never really want to do that in a race. You never want to run something twice. So that and that's important to me. Like the aesthetic of a route is really
yeah.
important to me going to a race. So I was kind of bummed about that, but the trails they chose were awesome. It was a mixture of like really fast running. Like if you look at the topo, it's kind of like, really small climbs, and then this like humongous, super sharp climb, and then like super small, and then another one. And it was like these three like big teeth throughout the race. And those were awesome. Like flatter running was playful and really beautiful trails, some gravel roads, a tiny, tiny bit of pavement. And then like these climbs were just like absolutely grueling steep, like so deadly steep. The steepest I've ever done in any race.
Really?
Yeah, like
Cool.
just like the tips of your toes on the trail barely can stay up, like not falling back. Like it felt like I was an ant crawling up these massive climbs, and then the descents were like, and the ascents and descents were sandy. It was really, really like soft sand, really, definitely quite technical, but yeah, like almost like playful, where you could like plunge your foot in a bit and just
Yeah.
like flow with the trail instead of like, super grueling. Like even at UTMB, like a lot of the descending is either rocky or just like really hard packed trail, which can be really hard on your body. So, and then there was like this one hilarious section of like mountain bike or like dirt bike geodes, like those like rolls. They're just like awful to run. You like, there's like super tight rolls. You just like kind of run down them, and then they just trash your legs on the way up, and you're just going over and over and over and over. That section there was like maybe 4 kilometers that felt endless of those, but everything else was just like beautiful single track with like awesome views, some like river kind of canyons that you ran through, a lot of like lakeside trails, and then one like iconic, like very beautiful. It's actually called the Bella Vista Ridge, and that was spectacular. Like one of my favorite parts of the race. Yeah, so a mixture, but really, really awesome choice of trail.
That's pretty cool. I don't know what the pool is, but I'm sure you can identify that we all get excited whenever you say something like, "Oh yeah, it was really, really steep." It's like, "Oh, brilliant, really steep. I like really steep too." I don't know what it is. It's just
Man,
like something we all like.
yeah, yeah, it was steep. And like, I can't imagine. I did like, there's one climb actually up to that, the most beautiful part of the race. Like, it's a climb up to this beautiful ridge. And it was like, I can't imagine doing it at night. So I think a lot of the runners ended up doing it at night. And it was just like, yeah, like kind of jungle, like bamboo stalks. And yeah, just the tips of your feet being able to eat into the trail. And yeah, and it's like, I think K in or 90K in, so it's pretty far in there. Yeah.
So you won the race in like literally a minute and a half over 15 hours, and you won it by 45 minutes. What time of day did the race start, and how did the kind of the race unfold?
Yeah, so it started at 10 p.m., which is challenging always, like a night start. It's hard. But yeah, it started at 10, and we immediately I wanted to test the field. There were some really talented South American runners there in from pretty much all the world, like from French runners and some Spanish runners, and yeah, so I wanted to kind of like test the field and see what was going on. But the first, I would say 20K were super runnable, like a big 700-meter runnable climb, and then a super steep descent to some really runnable flat terrain. So I didn't want to like go out hard because I knew that that is where you could really damage your legs. But I also wanted to see if anyone else would go out hard and maybe I could damage their legs. So I started out hard, and then once we got to that first descent, I was like, okay, now time to chill. And we'd split off like kind of like a group of 7 or 8 guys. And then once they hit the flats, they kind of did what I thought they would, which is just run fast. So they were running fast, and I kind of went into the race with a mental plan, which I've never really done. And like the first third of the race in my mental plan was to run intentionally and not to like get, pulled away or pushed back by anyone, just run my own race. If there's something I want to do, test the waters, I do it. But if there's some, like, once those guys started pushing the pace, I was like, it's okay. Like, you've got 110 kilometers. Let's just breathe and let these guys go. And yeah, so they ran hard on those flats. And once we hit some single track, I just, held my pace and ended up catching them pretty quickly. And that was a bit of a tick in my head too. It was like, okay, they're running slower on the single track than they are on the flats, which was actually not as much of a confidence booster, but more of a, okay, I need to worry about this later on, because there was another long section of really runnable terrain later in the race. And then, yeah, this beautiful, it's still night, and we were like 5 of us together, really, really fantastic runners from, I think it was like a Frenchman, a Spaniard, a Peruvian guy, and then Canadian and an Argentinian. So it was like this really wide spread of really cool guys. And I tried to talk to them and no one was having anything. And they also didn't speak pretty much. Like the French guy I knew, he also runs in Nordas, and he's a great guy. And I was chatting with him a bit, but yeah, no one wanted to talk. And that's pretty standard for men at the top of ultramarathon. And then, yeah, we got to this first grueling steep climb, and I was feeling well, and that's like 30K into the race. So still being intentional, like that was my goal for this first third of the race. I was like, okay, let's, with seeing them slow down on the single track, let's see how people react on the steep climbs. And I went up, and I didn't, I'm not, dropping the hammer or anything, but I just pushed the pace just a little bit. And myself and the French guy, his name is Gnome, and then Ramijo, who's the Peruvian guy, I believe, Peruvian, and the Terex athlete, who was, he was first ranked and very, very experienced and very well-known mountain runner, very successful guy, very serious guy. He followed my move too, so it was just the 3 of us. And then probably like 3/4 up, he pulled back, and I wasn't like, there's so many like night running, like there's a lot of people who just like are constantly looking behind them to see what the gap is. And I was trying not to focus on that. I just wanted to see, at the top of the climb, if I was by myself. And I actually didn't know that Gnome was with me. I thought it was him. I thought it was Ramijo. And yeah, he just like as I was descending, I was like, oh, maybe I can drop him on the descent and, make a gap and play with him a bit, because I'm a pretty strong descender. And yeah, it was Gnome, and by the bottom, I was like, oh man, if I knew it was you, I probably would have slowed down a bit and like chatted and just like had a good time. But yeah, we, nonetheless, we kept on running, and we ran like the next section together, and we had like a 4-minute gap on Ramijo. And then as we just like kept on going, it was, I was like trying to think of the night too, because in night races, sometimes right before sunrise, people slow down a bit, like even the elites, like definitely mid-packers, like they slow down quite a bit because your body's like, okay, time to go to bed. Like something about just before sunrise where you get really tired.
Yeah, like that
And
witching hour around like 4 plus
yeah,
a.m., something
yeah.
around there. Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay, if they slow down a bit and we speed up a bit, that's like kind of double damage, you know? So I was thinking, okay, let's just like push it a little bit. And I was hoping to like trade spots with Noam a bit and, we could just work together. But I ended up just like in the front the whole time, just kind of pushing the pace just a little bit, not like hitting high efforts, but more focusing on just containing continuous momentum through the race or through those trails. And they were kind of tricky to run fast too, like a lot of like little creeks that you had to cross and kind of technical riverside running. And then we got to the ski resort where like at the start of the race, I thought that was going to be the place where the race starts, that's going to be like where people really identify who's going to like, if there's a move to be made, I thought it would be there. It's a super steep sandy ascent. And then up a really beautiful ski resort, probably one of the most beautiful ski resort climbs I've done before. Sometimes you're running at a ski resort and it just feels like a barren wasteland, but this was kind of cool. And the sun was rising, so of course I was super excited for that. I kind of skipped over this, but the first third of my race, the word was intention, and then the second third of my race, the thing I was focusing on was actually focus, and just like running everything with a lot of focus, if that means like descending, focusing on where your feet are going, or nutrition, focusing on what you're eating, when you're eating, making sure everything is just like dialed. So like at the ski resort, I was really focused on like effort and kind of just, I was like, let's do it. Like, you're feeling good. I was happy. I was eating well. The stomach was, of course, getting exhausted from all the nutrition, but that's just what happens when you run hard and eat a lot. And then, yeah, I finally I was like, okay, like, let's see how people respond. Noam was fading a bit and my gap on the other guys, because there were some other guys behind too now who had joined, and it was kind of extending and I could see their headlamps down the ski resort, which was also helpful. And the ski resort climb, I think it was 1,000 meters. So it is a fairly big climb, and it would be like a good place to see if anyone wanted to respond.
So, like, how far time wise are you into the race by the time you get to this ski resort? Also,
So
just touch on, whenever you I think I'm right in saying that like you train and work a lot on like feel, like
yeah,
where are you allowing your energy to flex up to? Like, I think a lot of
yeah.
people can relate to like RPE of 1 to 10. Like, where are you kind of feeling like comfortable to flex to in like a 15-hour effort?
Yeah, so I think it was maybe, yeah, like at that point in the first climb, like those two climbs, I think I would probably put it around a 6 or a 7. So I do everything by feel. I don't look at my heart rate. I don't even like monitor my perceived exertion, like all that stuff. When I'm doing like speed, I push hard. And a lot of it is like incline, like running, a climb super hard, but I don't, and not on a treadmill or anything like that. So it's just like, it's hard for me because I don't actually have the like vocabulary, because like I said, I do it all by feel. But yeah, I would put like 6 or 7. It feels like hard. It felt like hard work. It didn't feel cruisy at that point. Yeah, yeah. So by the top of that ski hill climb, there's like this one section of 81 meters at like 20 or 30%, like super, super steep. And at that point, I, looked behind me and I saw everyone, or like as many people I could see. And I was like, let's do it. Let's go for this. Let's go for this win and see how people respond. So at that point, it was descending. And instead of focusing on, putting more effort in, I was just focusing on choosing lines, because this descent, it's not on trails. It was, a bit of it was on like cat road, but super, super rough and rocky cat road. And then a lot of it was just like, fields of sand and grass and stuff that were super super loose, and then really, really steep mountain bike trails at the bottom. And of the whole course, I had scoped this out before the race because of, I thought it would be so important to know this descent. And yeah, like I said, I wasn't focusing on pushing, but I was focusing on choosing efficient lines and keeping the momentum. And also that comes down to, like, when you're descending fast, especially in a race, you need to make sure you're on course, because if you come off course, then you sometimes you have to go back up, or sometimes, so you don't want to waste any time doing that. So it was like focus, that word was just like continual in my head. Focus, focus, focus. I got down to the aid station, and I think I had like a 6 or 7 minute gap at that point. So I knew that, okay, they didn't respond. Maybe they're saving it for later. And yeah, just like, let's take the little win, but not over celebrate. There's so much running left. And the next section was like, so that was the time that I made my move to try and win. And the next section was where I could lose it. So like, you get into the ski resort, like the main aid station, then you leave and you do this little descent, and then like really really spectacularly beautiful section up this river kind of canyon. And of course the sun had risen at that point. It rose actually when I topped out of the ski resort. That's when I saw the sun, which is like dreamy, of course. But now the sun was like up, and it was like, those golden rays through just like kind of dewy jungle. And it was really quite spectacular, especially in that river valley. Like, just like the fauna was just beautiful. And in that moment, I was trying to experience that too, and not focus and not stress on like this gap I'd made, or, all the distance I had to cover, how fast I had to go, my effort. I was just like, wow, this is beautiful. Like, let's enjoy the beauty of it. And yeah, like, of course I was going hard and still racing hard and looking behind me a bit, but not trying to stress too much. Because I didn't know, Remijo, I really hope I'm getting his name right, but he is a really experienced runner. Like, and I didn't know, what strategy he was going to play during this race. And I could feel easily that he could just like wait till 75 K in or a bit further, and then just like totally open it up and totally kill me. So yeah, I didn't know where that would come in, but we finally got through, or I got through this lovely river section, and then to like the last big climb of the day, that like really steep one I was referring to, up to Bella Vista, the Bella Vista Ridge. And at that point, it's another long climb, so I could see really far and see like no one down there. So I was like, okay, well, maybe they didn't respond, and maybe they're thinking that I'm gonna I'm gonna blow up or something, and I won't be able to maintain it. And yeah, I got to the top of this, really hard climb that I thought I'd cooked myself because of how slow I was going. But really, I was going at a good pace. Like a 700-meter climb, K into a race took me, 40 minutes, 35 minutes. So I was like, oh, like this is still going. Like, you're still good. And then at the top of that climb was the end of the second third of the race, and my last third of the race was belief. It was focusing on just like believing in myself, and something that I, spent a lot of my race season this year trying to do, and being empowered by that too, like just like trusting your training and trusting your nutrition, and just bringing that and bringing positivity from it. And so I stopped, like, in this, competitive race. I just totally stopped at the top. I topped out, I stopped running, I looked around, I took a breath and was like, wow, this is a beautiful place. This is amazing that you're here and you're running and you're happy. And just like, and I said, I like thought all of those things. And then I just said, like, believe it out loud. And then just like hammered this descent, like 6 kilometers, full gas. Just like, at this point, I was like, this is where the legs, if someone was playing the strategy to save their legs, it would be for this point here. So I also had to think of that too, and just like put more effort in. So yeah, I just, I let it open up a bit, and you get down this really runnable, amazing descent, like probably the most fun descent. Not steep, just like beautiful mountain bike trail, kind of through these like lovely forests. And it was a spectacular day. The weather was amazing. So it was like, the sun was poking through, and it was just like really fun. And then you get to the bottom of that, and it was like this gravel road. And at that point I was like, thinking back to the moment when those guys started running fast on the gravel at the beginning of the race. And I was like, okay, like you have to focus here and run really, really smart, because this is where they could do it to you. And so, yeah, I, looked at my watch. I was like, let's just try and stay around 5-minute kilometers on this gravel. You have run, okay, so you're tired, but like you can do this, and you got to believe that you can maintain that. So yeah, so the whole, like, I think it's like 15 kilometers of like super runnable terrain. Like I think I had like around a 5-minute average pace throughout that whole 15K, and got to the ski hill aid station. You actually use it 3 times. So I got to that last aid station because you use it 3 times. There's so many people there. So I got there, and people were like yelling, and everyone in everything in Spanish, and it was like chaotic. And there were like these 2 Canadians who were like, yeah, Canada. And I got to the aid station. They were like, you had 4 minutes at the last aid station, a 4-minute gap on the guys behind you. And I was like, holy shit, like they did make a move. They did try to catch me on the gravel road. And so I would like immediately, took out all my garbage, grabbed my 2 water bottles, put them in. I had 22 kilometers left on the course. And a lot of those kilometers, you redo the start of the race to get back to town, because it's like a kind of a loop, but you start and finish in the same spot. So you rerun that start and the descent. Okay, this is getting a little confused, but essentially at the end of the race, there's a really steep climb. And I was thinking back to it like, I can climb faster than these guys. If I can get to the base of that climb before them, I can win this race. That's all I have to do. I've got 4 minutes on them and like 13K to the bottom of the climb. I think it's going to be all right. So I grab my stuff, put it in, get running, just like hammering out of this aid station. And then the same Canadians who had told me that there was a 4-minute gap were like sprinting after me, like way behind me, yelling my name. And I was like, I can't stop. Even if I forgot something, I don't care. Like I'll deal with it. I checked everything. I was like, I have everything. And then finally they caught up to me, and they were like, you have 25 minutes. We made a mistake.
They must have felt so bad. We're like, we have to get this message to him. We could ruin this race.
Yeah, they were so sweet though. And I was like, thank God you came after me. Like, I would have figured it out at some point, but it was like, and then like, it was beautiful because not only was it not 4 minutes, but it was 25 minutes, which meant that I'd opened up a like 20-minute gap on these guys in the last 30K, which was, a big confidence booster. But I know that like, and I knew in that moment, and I've always, tried to run like this, but like, there's no celebrating until you can see the banner, even if you've got a big gap. And so then I still, ran with intention and ran with focus and ran with belief. Like I kind of was bringing it all together at that point, and proud of myself that I'd gotten that far, and that I'd kind of protected this gap that I had in what I thought was the most vulnerable part of my performance. And then, got to that last climb and felt like an absolute ant, and was struggling with some nausea, like really bad nausea at that point, and therefore like struggling to eat. But I took a little tiny like 30-minute, I eat on every 30 minutes. So I just took one break instead of eating. I just didn't eat and drank a bit more. And that was enough to like settle it a bit. And I got to the top of the last climb, and I was like, I've like let an audible breath out, threw my poles in, and just, it was 8 kilometers of really easy grade all the way to the finish line. And I enjoyed at that point, I was like, it's time to just, let the stress go, enjoy yourself. If someone catches you, like you put a great effort in. It doesn't matter, like you should be proud of what you did today, and just like, yeah, have a good time. So that moment of relief and gratitude for like, myself was like really spectacular, and also, made me feel good and made me run a bit faster. And then, yeah, by like it's a big city, so you hit concrete like 2 kilometers from the finish, and by the time I hit the concrete, I like let out like a big we in Canada we've got bears, so we call out and a lot like while we're running, and we say like hey, and yeah, so I let out this big like hey, and like just before I hit the concrete, I was like yes, like it was just like. And then, yeah, just the Argentinian people, they are passionate and they are, amazing. And the receipt I felt when I got to the town, and the welcoming energy was just like unbelievable. But I had this like itching feeling, like I had this really bad nausea. And I was like, if I stop running, I think I'm going to throw up like immediately. I really think this could be a bad experience for me. You can see in the finish photos, I'm like pale as a ghost. Some of it's sunscreen, but most of it's just like no color sickness. And I like crossed the finish line, and these amazing announcers, like the best announcers I've ever seen in an ultra marathon, were just like all over me in Spanish, and they were like cheering, like it was an amazing, well done finish line. And because it's such a big city and right in the center, there were so many people. And like I got the photo with the banner, I ran up and down, and or not even, I didn't even run up and down. I got the photo of the banner, and then immediately it was like, oh, it's coming, I'm done, I gotta throw up. I just like run to the medic tent and barely just hold it back. And actually I didn't throw up, which is pretty hilarious, but I wish I kind of did, because then it would have resolved everything instead of just like 2 hours of nausea after the race. But then, I did my interview at the finish line, and they were stoked. And then I asked like, well, what's the gap? And they were like, oh, like you've got like 40 minutes. And I was like, what? So that means that I opened up like another, like the last 20K, I ran like a minute faster each kilometer. And I was like, wow, that is awesome. And yeah, so a lot of just like pride and gratitude for, and yeah, just like pure happiness of something that I didn't think I would do. Like starting the race, I did not think I'd win. I thought I'd have a good day and enjoy myself, because that was my goal. But yeah, winning wasn't on the.
Did the nausea of the last couple of Ks take away from soaking in the atmosphere?
It did at the finish line 100%, but the last couple kilometers, like, so I had really bad nausea. I took a break from fueling just for like I said, 30 minutes. I didn't eat anything. And then I started eating again, and the nausea kind of settled a bit. And I think like it's so hard. Like you eat so much food, like running this hard. I was averaging kind of like 90 to 100 grams of carbs an hour, sometimes even more, sometimes a bit less. And even by 15 hours, like this is like my UTMB brain now thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I just have to run that at UTMB and I'll have a great day. But the fueling is the whole other side, is like, well, fueling, like when you're getting to a finish line, your brain kind of is like, oh, well, maybe I don't need to eat, because, I just have 8K left, and I run an 8K with no food a lot of the time, right?
I've thought this exact same thing before.
And thinking back to the race, I'm like, well, maybe the nausea was because I stopped eating, because I was like getting to the finish line, and yeah, it's hard to say, but it definitely took away from like my finish line experience. And even like looking at the photos, I was like, I do not look healthy in those photos. I look kind of ill. But yeah, like that's the that's the cost of doing business sometimes, like we push our bodies so far in the sport and you have to fuel it. And sometimes you have to push through the nausea and sometimes you don't. Like, that's just how it goes.
Didn't come across in the race videos and photographs. Didn't look like you were holding back the barf.
That's good. There's one video that you can see me. I just like peel off, and the announcers, they don't speak. They speak some. No, like it was only the announcers who spoke English in the finish. Like even the medics didn't really speak a lot of English. So like I was like trying to get across. Even when I came across the finish, I like told the guy, I was like, I could throw up at any moment. I just want you to know. And he didn't really understand. Probably he didn't hear me. And then after, once it hit, I was like, oh shit. And I was like trying to like show them like vomit, vomit, vomit. And
So
they
this can't have
finally,
been helping your at this point that either. You're not wanting to be sick, but you're trying to do sign
yeah,
language of vomiting.
yeah, yeah. And then like, yeah, I don't know who in there, like, I understand it's like a spectacle, all this, like these events, and they want the public to have a great experience too, but at a certain point, I don't think you should like interview someone after running a race. Like maybe the next day, like have like a public event where like people can come and you can interview them. But I was like not in the right mind or body to talk or anything. But yeah, I did my part.
Well, there's another experience you got to put in the memory bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a year where you've now won 2 UTMB World Series races.
Hmm.
A fantastic 2025. How do you feel like coming to the end of this year, just in yourself and your progression, and then going into next year? Like, what are you excited about? What do you think you can do?
Like honestly, right now, all I can think about is skiing and not running. But yeah, like after such a great year and especially like taking my goals of the year, Snowdonia and Death Race and like taking the course record at Death Race, winning Snowdonia, and then, the bonus of Bariloche, which I didn't think I would do. Yeah, like gratitude, gratitude for so many things, but a lot of like just self-gratitude for you know, being able to do that, like with like my body and my mind and my life and everything, like the support I've had from all my like friends and of course my girlfriend who's crewed me at a lot of these races, and my parents, how supportive they've been, um, and understanding. Like it's a crazy thing, and it's so easy to like lose sight of the craziness of ultra running, let alone the craziness of winning ultra marathons. And I've been trying to like bring myself back and take myself out of like the craziness of the sport and trying to just look at it and be proud of like the accomplishment and be proud of like putting the work in and setting the objective and achieving the objective. Like that, those 3 steps, like completing that circle almost, it's it's very empowering. And like I'm definitely trying to bank that energy and use it and bring it to next season. And I'm really excited to take some time off and, like I said, ski. Like that's all I can really think about right now. And yeah, just take some time off and bank those feelings and bring them back up like next April when I start training again, and get excited about everything to come, but also like learn from learning from Snowdonia and the training I put in and the breaks I took off, and same for Death Race, like, and then TDS, all those lessons. Like I learned so much this year about not just what it means to like run and win races, but also like what it means, what I need to continue to value, to do that. Like thinking about TDS, like setting those expectations and letting go of the expectations and how empowering that felt. And then same with Bariloche, going in with like no expectations, just to have fun and just enjoy myself and see the beautiful mountains of Patagonia. Like, and how that empowered me. Like, those are the things that I'm taking away from like such a successful season. Like, yeah, it was cool to win the races, but I learned so much doing it, and what it means for me to do those races was, and to win those races wasn't so much about the awards and the publicity and all of that. It's just like, yeah, running through the mountains really fast, and being and focusing on that instead of the competition. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. One of the things that we see so much, it's coming to the fore more this year, but like it's been a gradual progression of seeing more and more how the people that run and compete with joy and appreciation and
Hmm.
happiness are actually doing well, and it's not a fluke. It's
Yeah.
because it's one of the ingredients of getting the best out of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to take anything from, the super scientific oriented runners who are also doing well. Like, and that's the beauty of ultra running is, everyone needs to find their thing that can make them do the, unthinkable thing. Like, they need to find their approach, and everyone will have a unique approach. And yeah, for me and others, and what I think is extremely important to learn from ultra running is a lot of that is in the head, and you need to work on that as much as you need to work. Like, I'm doing all the things, I'm cross training and high carb fueling, and I'm not really doing uphill treadmill or weight vests, but I go on a canoe trip and I carry a food barrel that's 100 pounds, and that's there's my weight vest. But like, I don't want to like say like, oh, like everyone just needs to go run with the fairies and be happy, because it's not. It's like hard work, and you need to put your head down sometimes and do the work, but also you need to know why you're doing it and know what is motivating you and what makes you happy. And yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, yeah, well said. As we start to kind of wrap things up,
Hmm.
you know what trail runners are like. They love talking about gear. There's an obsession with shoes and with gear. So I'd love to just spend a couple of minutes learning some of your kind of story around Norda and how you connected with the brand, and also like, they have a number of different shoes. I don't know, over this
Hmm.
shoulder here, there's more Nordas
I can
than any
see
man
them.
really
Yeah.
needs. But, I just want to know, like, when are you reaching for certain models of shoes? I see you racing in the
Hmm.
O5 lots, it's obviously the race day shoe, but like, talk a little bit of the origin story with Norda and how that's developed.
Yeah, so I actually cold called Norda, which I don't actually know what the proper etiquette for trying to ask for a sponsorship is, but I sent them an email like many years ago and didn't get a response. And, I was like, okay, well, maybe I just need to work on my resume a bit. But I like, once I saw them on the market and started running in their shoe, like I started running in Solomon's and blew out the toe box, and I have fat feet. Then I ran in ultras and loved them. But once I started running a bit more competitively and faster, I found that they just weren't enough for me. And also the durability just sucked.
Yeah.
Same with the Solomons. Like, I live in the Rockies. It's rugged here. I was going through shoes like almost bi-weekly, and it was really bad and expensive and wasteful. And then I saw Norda, and it checked all the boxes. It was like Canadian, thinks about the environment, rugged, with a big, like a wider kind of toe box than like a narrow shoe. And I was like, okay, well, let's do it. And so I started running in those shoes. And of course, like, you run in Norda, so but yeah, I could run, I think I put 2,000 kilometers in my first pair of Nordas, like in the Rockies, in awful, like, scree slopes, and just no issues at all. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And at the same time, I was getting a bit more competitive and a bit more successful, and, reached out to them. And that's when I didn't get any response. And then a year later, I like was still, of course, still running in them. And I ran into a friend, Priscilla, who at the time was sponsored by Norda. And she was like, "Oh yeah, like I'll we'll get you guys in touch." And then, it like slowly, naturally grew into a bit of support, a bit of feedback. And as they grew, they would send me some shoes, and they sent me like the 02s when they came out, and those were cool. But I've always loved those 001s. Like they've always been my go-to shoe. And then I ran UTMB in a pair of Nordas, and then they were like, "Oh wow, this guy actually, he can run UTMB." And after that, they were kind of a bit more involved. Still no like contract or team or anything like that. And then the next year was the year the Ives came out, and they were like stoked about me also running UTMB again, and they gave me a pair of the demos, and I was like, whoa, like this is a crazy thing. I never ran in a super shoe, let alone something so light and so durable. And yeah, like again, the closeness of it too is really important to me. Like the fact that they're Canadian, a small brand, and people that I see eye to eye with, and that was really important. And then yeah, after that second UTMB, they welcomed or sent me a contract, and of course I was like, ah, yes, please, please, please. And yeah, and then I've been this will be my second year as official a trail team member, and yeah, I've just like I'm all for their progress. And of course, I love the shoes and would run in them even if I wasn't a team member, just because of how amazing they are, amazing they feel, and how fast they are. Like, so kind of to answer your original question, I mostly run in the ones. So like probably 70% of my runs are in the ones, a lot of training. And then all the racing I do is in the fives. Like for a race like Snowdonia, I was kind of a bit worried for the fives because they have a smaller lug. The grassy descents are so slippery, and there was one little bum slide, but other than that, they were amazing. And especially like having a shoe that does it all is really important in the mountain racing, because similar to what I was saying, Bariloche, you have these sections that you're descending super sandy, steep trails where you kind of need a bit of control, and then you get to the road and you're like, I need a road, or like a gravel road or a concrete road, and you're like, I need a road shoe, I need something light and something with pop. And yeah, it's a magical thing what they've done with the five, and yeah, just how versatile it can be in those long races. Yeah.
What's it like having someone with the experience that Jason Schlarb has as the team manager? Like, that seems like such a massive thing to have that as the athlete manager at Norda.
Yeah, it's great. Like, he understands.
And still, like, Jason is still, how long has he been at the top? He could still go out and win whatever he focused on. It's like he's still such
Yeah.
an absolute beast.
Yeah, and that's important for like a team manager. He's a great guy and a great friend. It's like, Jason as a person, he's like worked with, as a runner, he's worked with big brands, he's worked with small brands, and it's really important for us as the athletes to kind of learn from those perspectives and learn from that experience, on top of being a runner who's been running at the top of the sport for so long. Having those two things, it's really quite amazing to work under him. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's wrap it up. And I've got one fun question, and you can go with it whatever way you want. If UTMB was a Canadian company, how would it differ?
Oh my God. I don't know. I actually don't know if it would differ much. I don't think it would be as good, because I think the French have a really great perspective, like in sport, for events that are so, kind of passionate and like for sports, kind of like the Tour de France, and like, like, yeah, just their success throughout all sporting events. I think the French bring a really great perspective, and I think that, trickles down in culture and has also brought out a lot of great things in UTMB. I am a fan of UTMB. There are certain runners who are not and who think negatively of them. Even as a Canadian, like there has been some drama with by Whistler by UTMB and in the past. But yeah, I think it would be a change for the worse if it was a Canadian company. Not to say anything bad about Canadians. I love Canada and I am a proud Canadian, but I think the French bring a really nice, um, je ne sais quoi to UTMB.
So what would be at the aid stations?
Yes. At the aid stations, we'd probably have maple syrup of some sort.
Of course.
Like the gels would probably be maple syrup from Quebec, of course. And what else would we have? Maybe some poutine, and yeah, I don't think it would be. We don't have that many great foods, but it would be different. Probably just water and maybe like maple syrup mixed in water as the fueling, the liquid fueling.
I don't know. That sounds okay to me. I would give that a go.
I have ran with it and it is pretty good. Maple syrup is like very close to, but it's all sucrose, which is not the best versus like the high carb mixes are like a mixture of different sugars. I'm not really too sure about it, but
let's leave the science. We'll not go there. All right, Ethan. Look, this has been so much fun. Thanks for spending some time and catching up about the race and a load of other things. It's just been great fun chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Aaron. Thank you.